morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. Welcome to today's webinar on API security in video streaming. My name is Shivashish, and I will be your host for this insightful session today, dedicated to a discussion on common API security risks and vulnerabilities and how you can avoid them and build a more secure video streaming platform. If you can go to the next slide, please. So before we get started with the presentation, uh, let me give you a quick overview of Muvi. So established in 2011 and headquartered in the United States, Muvi was founded with a vision to disrupt the global streaming market. Muvi offers a diverse range of streaming products that cater to businesses of all shapes and sizes. So whether you are a small business or a large enterprise, our scalable and flexible streaming portfolio can adapt to meet all your streaming requirements. From comprehensive OTT platforms to fast channels, to the next slide, please. From comprehensive OTT platforms to fast channels, from on-demand streaming to live streaming, from audio streaming to video streaming, and from deploying websites to applications for mobile as well as TV ecosystems across 16 plus platforms, Movie has a solution for all your streaming needs that can be accomplished with just a few clicks without the need of any coding language. Our flagship product, Movie One, has been rated as the #1 OTT platform on G2, a trusted software review platform. Additionally, our live streaming platform, if we can go to the next slide. Additionally, our live streaming platform, Movie Live, was honored as the best live streaming product of 2022 by the readers of the Streaming Media magazine. Now, coming back to the topic for today, to the next slide, please. Coming back to the topic for today, data piracy is an imminent risk faced by the OTT video industry. Keeping sensitive data secure and confidential is the highest priority of any OTT business, and APIs are the key player in handling video security, user management, and content access. API calls mean data gets transferred, and during such transfers, it becomes necessary to deploy multiple layers of protection to ensure its safe deployment and delivery. But how does one ensure it? To answer this and to clear all your doubts about handling APIs securely and to understand its best practices, I'm pleased to invite our guest, Mr. Ratikanta Sahoo. Ratikanta is the Director of Engineering at Muvi with over 14 years of industry experience. Ratikanta is an expert in optimizing performance to enhance application scalability. At Muvi, he oversees the architecture of company's solution, ensuring robust and efficient systems. Welcome to the webinar, Ratikanta.
Thank you, Sivasis.
So now we can go on with the presentation, but I have just a small note for the audience. You can keep posting your questions in the Q&A box, and Ratikanta will answer all your doubts and queries towards the end of this presentation. Over to you, Ratikanta.
Yeah. Thank you, Sivasis. Good morning, good evening, and welcome everyone to this webinar. So today the topic is about security, and that is API security. So I think it is a most exciting topic. So nowadays, because in almost all the applications and all the industry, we are using APIs. So it is very essential to keep the APIs secure so that in the behind we can keep the data and all very secure. So we'll be going through this top 5 points. First of all is what is API security. Then we'll understand what is really API security risk and vulnerabilities. Then types of API cyber attacks. Then 8 best practices for securing the APIs. At the end, we'll go for the Q&A. So what is basically API security? API security abides to a number of measures and practices designed to protect APIs from unauthorized access, data breaches, and cyber threats. Nowadays, like most of the applications are coming across data breaches and unauthorized access and cyber threats. So to protect any kind of application from those kind of attacks, API security is a protection for the same. So it encompasses protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data transmitted and accessed through APIs. So over the API, we are passing the data and we are receiving the data. So it is very, very essential to keep the data confidential and secure whenever the data is transmitting through the APIs. Managing API security helps in preserving sensitive information, ensuring compliance with data privacy regulations, and upholding an organization's reputations. So nowadays, in most of the countries, uh, uh, to keep the data privacy, many governments are like strict with many kind of regulations. So we must be going through the all the regulations to protect our data. First of all, we'll go through API security risks and vulnerabilities. Uh, Majorly, we can see the injection attacks. So it is a in any kind of APIs or in case of application as well, API SQL injection and XML injection is very, very common. So we must handle all these exceptions, all these protections for any of our API endpoint. So this code can manipulate the API's behavior and potentially grant access to sensitive data. Even if any user who is calling an API, if he does not have also access to get any data, then using this SQL injection, he can breach and query to the database and get access to the data. Authentication challenges. Weak or insufficient authentication mechanisms can lead to unauthorized API access. Attackers may employ techniques like brute force attack or session hijacking to break authentication. So it is whenever the if we have very, very weak authentication mechanism behind the scene, then the attackers try to break the system using the brute force attack. And also in sometimes they hijack the session data. Authorization lapses. Authorization vulnerabilities materialize when authenticated users gain access to resources or functionality they should not have. Implementing robust role-based access control is crucial to mitigate this risk. So suppose we have two type of users. One is administrator who can have all the access, and we are just building any kind of application that is like a front-end application. You cannot upload videos, you cannot add new videos. So in that case, we need to properly handle the role-based access. Only the administrator can upload the videos, upload the contents, but the API authentication that has only to face the data, it should only be limited to that access only. So RBAC is a very, very crucial feature, and we should apply in the API. Insecure data transmission. APIs transmitting data without encryption are easy to steal. Implementing TLS a security layer, so it ensures data confidentiality during the transmission. So whenever the data is passed through the network layer, we have to protect that by encrypting the data. DDoS attack. So I think most of us have come across this word, this term like DDoS attack. So what happens is a attacker tries to break any application, any system by giving a lot of traffic to the system through and different kind of systems or up from different kind of scripts. So he just try to break the system. So to protect from such kind of like issues, we can implement the rate limiting on the API calls and also robust monitoring, inadequate logging and monitoring. So if we have an application and we don't have any adequate logging and monitoring a system is there, then we cannot track if any such issue is happening from the security point of view. Who is calling the API, how many times he has been called, from which geography or which location it is being called. So to get all these kind of information and to identify what is really happening behind the scene, we must implement the logging and a strong logging and monitoring system. Man in the middle attack. So attackers intercept and manipulate communication between two parties, potentially compromising communications, stealing data, or injecting malicious code. In the picture, as you can see that the user in the left side, he just requests or he just access with the original connection to the application, to the website, or that can be a application. But an attacker in the middle, he just try to uh, uh, hijack the system. Uh, uh, he enters into the middle of the a connection. So it is like middleman attack. So he can steal the data. He can inject the malicious code to the application. Brute force attack. Attackers seek to reduce authentication credential through repeated login attempts, exploiting weak passwords or authentication mechanisms. So we must have come across APIs like for the login kind of thing, registration. So the attackers to break the login system and get a full authentication authenticated token or something like that from the application. He just tries with so many different username and password, random username and password to break the login system. That is brute force attack. Data type of cyber attacks, data scrapping. Malicious actors extract substantial data from APIs, potentially leading to data breaches or service disruption. So they just try to steal the data through this API. Content spoofing. Attackers manipulate API responses to display deceptive or malicious content to users, often for phishing purposes. API abuse. Legitimate APIs are misused for malicious purpose, such as transmitting spam or launching attacks from a reputable source. Then 8 best practices for securing the APIs. Design with security in mind. So whenever we are starting the development of any kind of application or any kind of API system, so first of all, we should think from the security point of view. It should be our topmost priority. Threat modeling. Analyze your APIs to anticipate potential threats and vulnerabilities. Document these threats and develop strategies to mitigate them. So before starting of the development, we need to take the points into a notepad, and then I try to implement all those security practices, how to overcome those security issues. Data classification. Categorize the data that your API handles based on its sensitivity. Implement access control and encryption based on data classifications. In our application also, an administrator can create so many type of users with different access. So someone can the administrator can create a user who can only access to the transaction list. Any other, the administrator can add another user who can just try to access the content section only. They cannot change the settings. They cannot see the transactions. They cannot change the or access the end user details, email IDs or like mobile numbers or something like that. So we need to basically categorize what are different type of data we are handling in our applications. Attack surface reduction. Minimize the attack surface by exposing only the functionalities and data that are necessary. Avoid exposing sensitive data unnecessarily. Suppose there is an API requirement where we want to show the user information. So if in that API it does not need the email ID of the password to be shown, we should never expose that email ID. That is a privacy data of that user. We should not, unless it is required, unless it is expected, we should not expose that kind of data. Authentication and authorization. Define clear authentication and authorization mechanism. Determine who can access your API and what action they are allowed to perform. So that is like RBAC. So what kind of different kind of users we want to create and what access we want to give them. Security by design. Integrate security into your API's architecture from the outset. Leverage secure coding practices such as input validation to prevent common vulnerabilities like injection attacks. So in the SQL injection or the XML injection, what we can see is with the API parameter request parameters, the attacker tries to pass the SQL queries by like a different kind of parameters. So we should properly validate the input data, audit and update regularly. Security audits nowadays uh, is an essential practice that every company should do, or in every application also we should do it regularly. Schedule periodic security audits, preferably conducted by experienced penetration testers. These audits help identify vulnerabilities and weakness in your APIs. Vulnerability assessment. Use automated vulnerability scanning tools to identify common security issues, regularly review and address the findings. So we should always nowadays in the market, so many kind of security scanning tools are available. So we should always take a tool and use that to scan our application with a regular interval. Patch management. Stay vigilant about security patches and updates. Apply patches promptly to fix known vulnerabilities. So like we should always identify what is the where actually the issue is, and um, uh, security issues should be our first priority, and we should patch them immediately if anything is reported. Version control. Maintain version control for your APIs. When introducing new features or updates, ensure vulnerabilities are not introduced. Even if with a older version the security was not there, but with the newer version we should improve on the security practices. Implement robust authentication mechanism. Auth 2. This is a very popular authorization framework. So we should always take the this is one of the authorization framework. So there are many other as well available in the market. So we should use this auth to to provide the robust authentication for both application and the users. API keys. Implement API keys for similar client authentication. However, ensure they are adequately protected, rotated, and not exposed in client-side code. So the API keys that should be generated and periodically it should also be rotated uh, like very frequently, uh, s- so that if someone also gets mm, by any means, it should not he should not use it. So we should also like provide the feature to uh, change the API keys immediately. Uh, Multi-factor authentication. So encourage or require multi-factor authentication for API access, especially for authentications that handle sensitive data. So for the user specific data, we should always like make it a practice that multi-factor authentication is implemented to ensure that um, uh, the legitimate user is accessing the data. JWT token. So nowadays, JWT token is mostly used by all the developers in all the platforms to keep the sensitive data by encrypting them. So it is also a very good practice to use it. Input code to protect against common cyber attack. Input validation, implementing throughout input validation to prevent injection attacks, sanitize and validate data from untrusted sources. So we should never like take the exact parameter value and pass that to the database query. We should properly validate. We should like properly first of all sanitize that no special characters, nothing is no unwanted character is inserted into that. If else, if something is there, then we should decline that API request. Output encoding. In most of the APIs where there are secure informations or the sensitive information are there, we should always encode the output. Um, Content security policy. Using this CSP headers to control which source of contents are allowed to be executed and loaded by your web application. CSRF tokens include anti-CSRF tokens in your API request to counteract CSRF attacks. These tokens validate the legitimacy of the request. So for each and every API request, we should validate mandatorily with a token, and we should never skip it like in the validation phase. Implement rate limiting thresholds. Define reasonable request thresholds for different type of clients, like free users, premium users, applications. So depending on different kind of plans or different type of users, so we should always put the limit that how many times or within a specific time period, how many APIs calls should be allowed. Um, if someone is trying to make more API calls, then we should immediately like block that user or block that IP address or something like that. Granularity. Implement poor endpoint rate limiting to ensure that a spike in request to one endpoint does not affect the entire API. So attackers like the DDoS attack. So in that case, what happens? The attacker tries to just uh, uh, put more and more traffic to a single endpoint, or maybe any kind of a random endpoint of an application. So what we can do is um, uh, we can like put the rate limiting like on specific endpoints, or maybe over overall the all the APIs. Error handling, return appropriate error responses when rate limits are exceeded, allowing clients to adjust their behavior. Encrypt sensitive data. data at rest, encrypt sensitive data when it's stored, whether in database or on disk, implement strong encryption algorithm, and manage encryption keys securely. Uh, like always the sensitive data of any user, we should encrypt it before serving into the database. Data in transit, transmit data over secure channels using protocols like HTTPS. Always use secure ciphers source and ensure proper certificate management. So HTTP should be must for any kind of API platform or API gateway or something like that. Without HTTPS, we should never allow any API calls through only HTTP. Um, Encrypt sensitive data, authentication and authorization, implement authentication and authorization logic within the API gateway. This centralizes security controls and simplifies management. Nowadays, we can see that most of the applications are developed using microservice applications. So, even if there are hundred number of, thousand number of backend services are there, but there is only a single API gateway. So it is always better and mm, it is always better to implement the authentication and authorization at the first instance of a request. So we should block that from the API gateway only. It's the request should not go to the respective service at least. Logging and monitoring, API gateway can capture detailed logs and metrics, adding security incident detection and response. So there are so many tools we can use to uh, frequently log all the API calls. We can analyze the logs there. Like we can use different kind of filters on those requests. And if um, uh, anything wrong is happening there, then from that data analysis or the graphs, we should be able to identify what is really happening. Traffic control, control and manage network traffic distinct for your APIs, enabling features like rate limiting and content caching. So if someone tries to break your system with so many API calls, then if all the requests are passed to the respective service endpoint, then what happen is there is a very big chance that your database can also break. So for that kind of thing, we can use the caching mechanism there. So in any kind of streaming platform where the videos are there, where the contents are there, we must be doing caching, and it can minimize the access to the database. Security plugins. Many API gateways offer security plugins that can be customized to enforce security policies designed to optimize API security, align with established security standards, industry regulations. As I earlier told that nowadays so many countries are uh, bringing different regulations for these data security kind of things, ensure compliance with any applicable industry specific regulations such as HIPAA compliance or healthcare or GDPR for data privacy. Security frameworks, implement security frameworks like NIST cyber security framework or ISO uh, uh, IC 27001 to ensure a robust security position. So regularly, time to time, we should do audits and ensure that our application is always following those ISO best practices. At the end, Now the time is for the Q&A. How to hide URL in network tab while streaming in Videos uh, player. So we can encrypt like the player code. So it will not be mm, visible whenever you inspect the data, yeah, or the request in the browser. Which tools do you recommend? Okay, tools to test the security. So we are using a paid version of some application that I forgot the name. Yeah, that's all from my side. So over to Sivasis.
Thank you, Ratikanta, for this amazing presentation. And the Q&A has started, and there should be a list of poll questions that should be visible on your screen anytime now. We request you all to please fill in. This helps us to understand our audience better and create more informative webinars as well as content in the future. So coming back to the Q&A, Ratikanta, we have a question coming from the live stream, which is from Saurabh, and he wants to know that why does this data classification should be done during the API design phase?
Okay, unless you understand the data, right, you cannot identify really which data you need to keep secure. So suppose there are data that there is no risk uh, if you expose that through the APIs, but there are data that the user is not intended to be exposed. So we need to do that classification before. We need to understand the application, the API which you are building. So while playing with the user data, we should take it seriously and need to understand the gravity of the data.
I hope this answers your question, Saurabh. That's all for today. This concludes our session for the day. I would like to thank Ratikanta for taking out time and being a part of this webinar. Thank you so much, Ratikanta.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
To all our audiences, Muvi keeps conducting monthly webinars on some interesting industry topics and to showcase some of Muvi's best offerings. I would personally request all our viewers to keep a lookout for our social media channels and the website for the registration link to the next webinar. As a small token of appreciation, we would like to give you an informative brochure to view later. Well, and that should be available in the chat section now. Now coming back to the next webinar. Now the title for the next webinar is Building Your Online Streaming Business with a Remote Team. And please mark your dates. It will be on 12th of June 2024. And the timings would be 9:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. It will be conducted by Prashasti, who is the Director of Director of HR at Muvi. So till then, have a great time. Stay safe. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.